Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Anil Joshi. Welcomes you to my series that is Learn Radiology with Dr. Anil Joshi. Today's topic is skeletal dysplasia part 2. Skeletal dysplasia is a very vast topic and it cannot be covered in one lecture. We have divided into the two lectures. The part 1 is already been covered and this will be a part 2 of the skeletal survey where we'll be seeing in more detail as far as disease pattern are concerned. Now, this is about the radiological appearances, radiological patterns of some of the important skeletal dysplasia. As it is said, it is not possible to cover all the dysplasias in one lecture. So here we go to the main topic. Now, first is disclosure. Disclosure is as far as possible the material is from our department and the slides are prepared by our departmental people. But however, it is quite possible that some of the material is downloaded from the net, which is royalty free and without any financial matters. So we acknowledge with thanks those who has given us this material. Though the name is not known to us, we thank them sincerely for the material they are given for the teaching purposes. This is purely a teaching lecture series and it is not having any commercial background. There are no commercial matters involved in this entire series. So with this disclosure, we go to the main lecture, that is skeletal dysplasia, radiological appearances and approach part 2. Now, basic approach to skeletal dysplasia by conventional radiology or by plain radiograph is a vast topic. Therefore, we have divided it into two parts. Part 1, it briefs about skeletal changes, bone involved in the disease process, and there is illustration and it illustrates as how to approach different diseases by a skeletal survey. Part 2 will explain radiographic patterns of different diseases and how to approach them. Again, we are saying that all dysplasias are not covered, only those which are important and seen more frequently are covered. Those who are interested can go in further details and find out the rare possibilities, because skeletal dysplasia list not only increases every day, but the patterns are described and the etiologies for that, the genetic basis is every day coming in new forms. So let us have a basic consideration of the skeletal dysplasia. Now, radiological approach for different type of dysplasias is the first thing which we are going to see. Now, first in imaging approach is the postnatal skeletal survey. We are not considering a congenital anomaly scan, which can also detect some of the skeletal dysplasias. This lecture essentially deals with the radiographic appearances and the role of skeletal survey in different dysplasias, because it happens that radiologists pick in some particular X-ray, some particular finding, and with that he can investigate by going into detail of the skeletal survey many more features and he come to a definitive diagnosis. And conventional radiology in that way is one of a gold standard as far as skeletal dysplasias are concerned, provided we meticulously read the X-rays. Now, which are the X-rays taken? That is AP and lateral skull to include the atlas and axis. Now, AP chest or PA chest, then AP pelvis with both heads, it is popularly called, then lumbar spine, AP and lateral. Thoracolumbar spine is essentially more important than lumbosacral spine because a lot of changes are there at the junction of thoracic and lumbar vertebra. Then for limbs we can take AP, which are more informative than lateral, but as per requirement after AP, yes, we have to top up with oblique or lateral. Then upper limb, one X-ray we have to take either of the right hand or of the left hand. If it is bone age, then in the left hand, otherwise we can take any hand that will do the same purpose. Then hand, usually PA, usually left if as per bone age. Now what we see in the X-rays taken, whether the extremities are short, long, large, broad or hypoplastic. maybe entire extremity, maybe part of it, maybe finger, maybe phalanges, or maybe certain portion of the skull, atlantoaxial region, or otherwise. Then we have to do sum of it. Sum is the addition. We have to sum all the findings which are seen in the different X-rays, which bones are long, which are short, which are flared, and which are really fused, which are less, and which are many. If there is any additional bone, additional element of the bone, or also there are less, or if they are fused. Then we have to see for the complications, which include the deformity, as well as it includes the periosteal reaction, it includes the callus formation due to multiple fractures. Then osteogenesis imperfecta is a classical example where we get multiple heel fracture. Then atlantoaxial subluxation is very common in MPS. So as soon as we see dorsal lumbar spine and diagnose MPS, straight we go to the skull lateral, which atlantoaxial inclusion. So that gives us idea about the sella shape of the skull, so also about the atlantoaxial region. Then if there is scoliosis or not, that also we have to find out. And limb length discrepancies, as in epiphyseal stippling and diaphyseal, and dysplasia epiphysealis. Then malignant changes also needs to be seen. Then all these things, once we see, we have to sum them, we have to add them, and we have to come to a diagnosis. Now, shape of the bone is also important, whether metaphyses are flared, whether metaphyses are stippled or coned, that is a distortion of shape. Now, all these things we are going to see when we will be seeing the film reading session in the same topic, when we'll be coming to different diseases, and we'll see the different pathologies in the bone. Then platyspondyli, then hooked vertebral bodies, as in mucopolysaccharidosis. Then posterior scalloping of the vertebral bodies, as in neurofibromatosis or achondroplasia. Then sloping acetabular roof, as in MPS, mucopolysaccharidosis, and horizontal trident acetabular roof seen in achondroplasia. These shapes, as that of the trident, can really be explanatory, and full details of such shapes are available on the Google, so we'll not go into detail in this lecture. So what is the meaning of trident? Trident is a shape which the acetabular roof takes, and it is a characteristic. Then treatment of the hand in achondroplasia is again important. Then what to look for? One is anatomical location, bones, complication, and whether the fetus is dead or alive. So that will give us an idea that what type of dysplasia we are treating, because some of the dysplasias are really fatal. Then cleidocranial dysplasia, ischiopubic patella syndrome, then spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia, tarda or congenitala, and metaphyseal chondrodysplasia. These things we have to see. Now we come to the B is bone. Bone, what we see in the bones is the structure, shape, size. Then sum again is the what are the findings, you have to sum them. And soft tissues also we have to see in addition to bone, because many changes of the bone are associated with the soft tissue changes. So these things needs to be summarized. Now, disorganized development of the cartilaginous and fibrous component of the skeletal is again an important clue as to what type of dysplasia we are dealing with. Now, multiple cartilaginous exostosis, then multiple flat or protuberant exostosis, then short ulna distally, that is river medullum deformity. Then what we see in the skull are the multiple vermian bones, then widened sagittal sutures, then frontal and parietal bossings. In chest, what we see is a hypoplasia of the lateral clavicle or absent clavicles, then supernumerary ribs and small scapula. Pelvis is the hypoplastic iliac bones, and pseudo widening of the symphysis. Now, what are these features? These are the features of dysplasias with predominant membranous bone involvement. So this you will find in cleidocranial dysplasia. So here we are just putting it in a way that first we are saying the findings, and you will have to identify the disease. If you identify the diagnosis, you will get the answer of cleidocranial dysplasia, where there will be changes in the skull, whether there are changes in the chest and changes in the pelvis. So ultimately you will get a diagnosis. The reverse is just to memorize you that whether you can get along with the lecture and you can identify the structures. Now, you identify here, that is the metaphyseal, splaying, thoracic vertebral segmental defects, then what it is, the chondrodysplasia punctata or stipple epiphysis, the stipple calcified in cartilaginous, particularly around the joint and in the laryngeal and in tracheal cartilages you will find, and this is how a X-ray will look like. So now here what we are seeing are the type 2 collagenopathies, that is spondylobifacial dysplasia, congenita and tarda. So here we are seeing what we are getting, or what are the features are the short neck, short trunk, atlantoaxial instability, platyspondyly, limbs are short, proximal limbs, and what we are seeing in the X-rays are characteristic mound of bone in the central and posterior part of the vertebra and plates. This is the spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia congenita and tarda. Now let us come to the metatropic dysplasia. There will be short tubular bones with marked metaphyseal widening, that is dumbbell shape, then platyspondyly progressive kyphosis and large intervertebral disc and a fat acetabular roots. So this is how the X-ray should look like. Now let us come to the another type where how to identify is by the structure. Now we have to find the bony density, whether it increase or decrease. Then there is exostosis and achondromas and metaphyseal striations are there, osteopathic striata, osteogenesis imperfecta. The major radiologic of the osteogenesis imperfecta are generalized. It's a generalized bone disease. Then there is osteoporosis, retarded calcareal bone formation, vermian bones are there. Then there are collapsed vertebral bodies, there are rib fractures, thin cortex in the tubular bones, and in more severe cases, there is thin shaft and fractures and bowing of the deformity. Now we will see multiple fracture bone and multiple healed fractures when we see the long bones. The major radiographic of the osteogenesis imperfecta are generalized. So osteoporosis, retarded calcium formation and vermian bones, collapsed vertebral body, rib fracture, thin cortex in a tubular bone. Again we are recollecting same, and achondroplasia. Let's come to achondroplasia. Let's see what it is. Achondroplasia is a type of dysplasia. In that, there will be bullet-shaped vertebral bodies, then decrease in interpedicular distance in lumbar spine caudally, and flat acetabular roof, short white tubular bones, large skull wall, relatively short base, and small foramina magnum, and relative overgrowth of the fibula. So fibula will overgrow as compared to tibia. Now let us come to a group that is osteochondrodysplasias. By definition, this is the abnormalities of bone and cartilaginous growth. So osteochondrodysplasia is the abnormality of bone and cartilage as far as growth is concerned. Because of the abnormal gene expression, phenotypes continue to involve the entire lifespan. Now dysostosis, that is altered osteogenesis in the first 6 weeks of the intrauterine life. That is dysostosis. Dysostosis is a altered blastogenesis in first 6 weeks of intrauterine life. Then phenotype fixed. Now, what is the International Classification of Osteochondrodysplasias, which was established in 2002? First is osteochondrodysplasia, which has got 33 groups. Second is dysostosis, which has got 3 groups, A to C, that is predominantly craniofacial involvement. Then second is predominant axial involvement. Then predominant involvement of the hands and feet are the features. Now, what is the congenital dwarfism? Autosomal dominant. Now let us come to achondroplasia. In achondroplasia, almost all the bones are affected. Now, spine show posterior vertebral scalloping. Then there is decreased interpedicular distance. Then there is narrow foramina magnum, and gibbous is seen at thoracolumbar region due to kyphosis. Then widened intervertebral disc space and a large anterior fontanella, and skull shows a large vault, that is the frontal bossing. Now let us come to osteogenesis imperfecta. The term osteogenesis imperfecta refers to a clinically and radiologically and genetically heterogeneous group of disorders caused by mutation of gene that encodes type 1 collagen, leading to increased bone fragility. So there are frequent fractures as well as frequent healing. The overall prevalence of osteogenesis imperfecta is 1 in 28,500 live births. Now we are going more into details of osteogenesis imperfecta as far as genetics is concerned. It's a group of conditions secondary to abnormality of type 1 collagen, then type 1 to 4, most severe type are 2 and 3, and the mildest is type 1 variety. The major radiologic findings of osteogenesis imperfecta are generalized: osteoporosis, retarded calcareal bones, Vermean bones, collapsed vertebral bodies, rib fracture, thin cortex, intubular bones, and more severe cases there is thin shaft with fractures and bowing deformity because of the repeated fractures and repeated healing. Let us continue ahead. Then additional external anomalies, they refer to abnormal shaped ear, caudal appendages, facial deformity, cleft palate, micrognathia, short nasal bridge, internal anomalies such as cardiac anomalies, that is Alice Van Cleveld syndrome, the urinary tract abnormalities like Shortling, polydactyly type 2, and genital abnormalities, that is Roberts syndrome, Compto-Melic dysplasia, gastrointestinal tract abnormalities, achondrogenesis type 1, and skull abnormalities, that is asymmetry, basilar invagination, clover leaf skull, and craniosynostosis. And such type of defects are very common in osteogenesis imperfecta. However, the most picked and the easiest to pick are the long bone changes. Let's continue imperfecta. Here there is basilar invagination, then excess Vermean bones, then there will be kyphosis, there will be vertebral compression fractures, then platyspondyly. Chest will show the pectus cavum, then accordion ribs, then there will be protrusion acetabuli in pelvis, then there will be coxa vara again in the pelvis. These findings you will find in chest, you will find in head, and you find in pelvis are listed. Let's go through them. Now it is generalized inherited disorder. Incidence is 1 in 20,000 births. Now these are the radiological features. There is basilar invagination, then there are Vermean bones, there is a kyphosis, then there will be vertebral compression fractures, then deformed bones and hyperplastic callus. The long bone appears shortened due to repeated fractures, and there will be a curvature abnormality. All is diagnostic of osteogenesis imperfecta. Now let's go to the next, thanatotrophic dwarfism. Now, thanatothoracic dysplasia. The term thanatophoric dysplasia is derived from the Greek word thanatophoros, which means bearing death. Thanatophoric dysplasia is a most common lethal skeletal dysplasia. Langer et al. Separated this condition into two types, the type 1 and type 2. Now, thanatophoria, that is a death bearing. Inherited skeletal disorder. Now, the extremely short limbs are there. Incidence is 1 in 60,000. Cases are classified into type 1, that is curved thigh bones, flattened spine, and type 2, that is unusual head shape and craniodysostosis. Now, what are the radiological features? Bowing of the long legs, metaphysis is irregular, then metaphysis of the knee is absent at birth, then marked platyspondyly, posterior vertebral elements are normal, so anterior view of the vertebral resemble the letter H. Pelvis shows poor mineralization, skull shows lateral temporal bulging, that is clover leaf skull. Now, thanatophoric dysplasia type 1 is the most common. It is lethal neonatal skeletal dysplasia. Then it has got short limbs with wide costochondral junctions. Then there will be severe platyspondyly. The femora will be like telephone receiver shape because of the shape, altered shape, and skull will be of clover leaf. Short, broad tubular bones of the hand and feet will also be characteristic. All these things can be appreciated in this fetus. This is thanatophoric dwarf. Note, disproportionately small rib cage and extremely short limbs and folds of the extra skin on the arms and legs that can be appreciated. Now, what are the radiological features? These babies, newborns, have a very short lifetime. Limbs are extremely short. Humeri and femora are typically telephone handle shape. Then iliac bones are hypoplastic. Iliac wings are squared. Trident acetabulum. Narrow chest and a small scapula. Skull shows frontal bossing and microcephaly. Earlier we have seen the X-rays. Earlier we have seen the X-ray findings, and here I have recollected all the findings which should be there in a scheduled survey of such patients. Then flat nasal bones and flat normal trunk length. All these features needs to be found out, documented by different type of X-rays. Now, what is mucopolysaccharidosis? MPS as it is commonly said. Now, introduction for MPS. The MPS, mucopolysaccharidosis, are a group of heritable lysosomal storage disorder caused by deficiency in glycosaminoglycan, that is GAG, degrading enzymes. It results in accumulation of unprocessed or partly processed GAGs, determinant sulfate, heparin sulfate, keratin sulfate, and chondrin sulfate in lysosome, causing progressive damage of the affected tissues, including heart, respiratory system, bones and joints, and central nervous system. So this was introductory or the embryological or the genetical basis for the MPS. Now, what are the groups of inherited disorder that result in the widespread skeletal, visceral, and mental abnormalities? Now, these are the type of MPS: type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4. The lateral radiograph of skull will reveal J-shaped sella. Then there will be underdeveloped mastoids. Then sinuses will be hypoplastic. Spine reveal expanded anterior ribs and hypoplastic ala and coxa valga. Then hypoplastic vertebra, anterior beaking of the spine, which is most characteristic and one of the most important finding through which the MPSs are picked. And then we go to the lateral to find out the remaining finding. Then hand radiograph reveals thick and short metacarpals and phalanges with pointing of proximal metacarpal, and loss of bone density and coarsening of the trabecular pattern. Now coming to Turner-Hunter syndrome. Diagnosis is made between 6 to 24 months in presence of hepatosplenomegaly, skeletal deformity, coarse facial features, corneal clouding, joint stiffness, and short stature. Hearing loss is the common, and developmental delay and moderate mental retardation is always there. Now, what is a Morque's syndrome? On the other hand, this is characterized by short trunk dwarfism, then corneal deposits, skeletal dysplasia, and prevention of the preservation of intelligence. Extraskeletal manifestation may include hepatomegaly, cardiac valvular lesions, and small teeth with caries. Let us continue. Normal intelligence, absent odontoid peg, platyspondyly, progressive disappearance of the femoral capital epiphysis. Now, all these findings we are seeing in the pictures. Earlier we have seen what should be there, and here now we are seeing what is seen in the illustrations. Vermian bones, presence of vermian bones is a common. Basilar invagination is also important. Then hyperplastic callus. Then severe protrusion of the acetabuli, hot fish vertebral bodies. Then M.O. Schankner appearance are seen in these X-rays. Now see again the X-rays, what is show: vermian bones, basilar invagination, hyperplastic callus, severe protrusion of acetabuli, hot fish vertebral bodies, and M.O. Schankner's appearance. This was the Morque's syndrome. Come to metaphyseal dysplasia. Metaphyseal chondrodysplasia, also called Schmidt, that is the metaphyseal flaring, then increased density and unevenness of the metaphysis. Then particular of the upper femora, these changes will be seen, and around the knee joints you will see same finding, that is the metaphyseal chondrodysplasia, that is metaphyseal flaring you can see, increased density you can see, then changes you are appreciating more is around knee joint. Then thickened skull. We have seen lot of features of the MPS. One of the feature is a thickened skull. Is that a thickened skull is pathognomonic? Is that it is a characteristic finding of any disease? The answer is no. What is the differential for thickened skull? It can be a normal variant. It can be prolonged phenytoin treatment can cause a thickening of skull. Then microcephaly can cause thickening of skull. Then punctate hydrocephalus again is a cause of thickened skull. So these things should be remembered. In addition to acromegaly, extramedullary hemoptysis, these few things also should be remembered when we are seeing a thickened skull. Then another differential is for the J-shaped sella. Now in J-shaped sella, all the time we are seeing J-shaped sella, we should not jump to the dysplasia or MPS. It can be a normal variant. Then it can be because of optic chiasmal glioma if chiasmatic sulcus very depressed, that is W or omega shaped sella. So this is one of a reason for not exactly J shape but for the omega shaped sella. Then neurofibromatosis, achondroplasia, then chronic hydrocephalus, enlarged anterior aspect of the third ventricle will give. In this figure we are seeing a J shaped sella. Now is the Hasdeo-Cheney syndrome. It's a rare disorder of the bone metabolism. The diagnosis is made by findings, that is acro-osteolysis with any three of the following, that is Wormian bones, open skull suture, platybasia, micrognathia, mid-facial flattening, premature loss of the teeth, or coarse hair and short status. Now see the hand. There is acro-osteolysis, transverse band of osteolysis. The spine is showing concave vertebrae, kyphosis, and spondylolisthesis. So these are the changes. Now let us come to further in skeletal dysplasia, that is the osteopetrosis. It is another common condition which we must diagnose on radiological basis. It is seen in clinical practice and should not be missed. Now in that, the chest overall show increased bony density, which is due to accumulation of the immature bone. Then extremity shows generalized increased bony density. Then there is alternating areas of increased and decreased density in the metaphysis. This is also called bone with bone appearance. Then the femur may show deformity called as Erlenberg-Meyer-Flask deformity, that is the blocked femoral metaphysis. Let us come to another variety, that is increased bone density without modification of the bone shape. Now this type of dysplasias include osteopetrosis, which is generalized increase in skeletal density, then alternating bands of radiolucency and sclerosis, which you can see in these. This is the case of osteopetrosis. Now this is another case which shows skull diffusely thickened, sclerotic bones, chest and lung fields are usually clear, but the ribs show the abnormality. Now again we are continuing osteopetrosis, diffusely thickened sclerotic bones, loss of corticomedullary differentiation, bone within bone appearance, and metaphyseal translucent bands are the few features. Now let us come to a differential diagnosis. Differential diagnosis include pycnodysostosис, malorheostosis, then heavy metal poisoning, hypervitaminosis of D, and for skull and facial bone, it is fibrous dysplasia. These are the differential point we must keep in mind. Now let us come to fibrous dysplasia. The skull will show symmetrical thickening of the wall with sclerosis at the base and multiple round areas of radiolucencies. Then there will be obliteration of paranasal sinuses. Then groundless areas in alteration with patchy sclerosis and expansion is another feature. Then cortical thinning and endosteal scalloping is again seen in fibrous dysplasia. Now let us see the illustrations. In this X-ray, what we are seeing is a groundless matrix, well circumscribed lesions, no periosteal reaction. Pelvis is showing bubbly cystic lesions, fusiform enlargement of ribs, which are not seen in this, but it is one of a feature. Then extremities only may lead to premature fusion of the growth plate and bowing deformity of the extremities. and Schaefer-Crooke deformity is seen because of the lesions. And that is characteristic, and often that is the first thing we found, and then we diagnose fibular dysplasia and see other limbs and other skeletal survey. Now let us come to the next is osteopyklosis. Now there will be sclerotic foci islands around pelvis and metaphysis of a long bones, that is osteopyklosis. Now there are certain rare hereditary and familiar bone abnormalities we must know. Now let us come to the dystrophic dysplasias. Now the term dystrophic dysplasias implies twisting and describe the twisted habits in the dystrophic dysplasia, habitat in dystrophic dysplasias. The mode of inheritance is autosomal recessive due to mutation in the dystrophic dysplasia sulfate transporters. Now gene located at the chromosome number 5q32-q33.1 resulting in undersulfated proteoglycans in the cartilage matrix. Now rare hereditary and familiar bone abnormalities includes. Now we are going to see a different type of rare hereditary and familiar bone abnormalities. Now what are the clinical features of all these things? Is hepatosplenomegaly, limb adenopathy, then thrombocytopenia and failure to thrive. Bones are dense but extremely brittle. Now what are the radiological features of all? Is generalized sclerosis of the skeleton. Long bones are flared. Occasionally shafts of the bones are widened. Ilium demonstrate multiple curved lines paralleling the iliac crest and sandwich vertebrae. Then calvarial basal thickening and sclerosis with poor development of the sinuses. Is now dystrophic dysplasias. What are the clinical features? It is the micromalic dwarfism with hand deformity with multiple flexion contractions and scoliosis. Then there is stunted growth, mental retardation, widened gait and joint hypermobility. Now dystrophism. The incidence is 1 in 1,000, 1 in 1 lakh. This is autosomal recessive dysplasia. Cartilage and bones are more affected. The symptoms include inward and downward turning of the foot, then progressive curvature of the spine and unusual position thumb, that is Hitchhiker's thumb, and Matthew James Roloff. Here we are seeing flexion of the metacarpophalangeal joint, hyperextension of interphalangeal joint. It is seen in the dystrophic dysplasia and rheumatoid arthritis. In this type of thumb has got differential, that is rheumatoid arthritis and dystrophic dysplasia. Now next is multiple metaphyseal dysplasias. Achondroplasia. This is the short limbs with normal head and face, platy spondyli with tongue-like anterior protrusion of the vertebral bodies and biconvex configuration of the vertebral plates and irregular metaphysis. In this picture we have shown how achondroplasia is seen. Now what are the disorders of epiphysis manifested in childhood? Let us come to first clinical features. They are noticed when child starts walking. There is widening of the gait. It affects both the sexes, male as well as females are equally affected. Then mental status is normal. Hands and feet are short and stubby. Then what are the radiological features of epiphyseal disorders? The epiphyseal development is delayed. Bilateral and symmetrical involvement is there. Then growth is abnormal and delayed. Then maturation is also delayed. Then carpal and tarsal bones are hypoplastic. Long tubular bones are short and thick. Then femoral head condyles are flattened, and the spine changes are similar to Schurman's disease. Now here we are seeing all the features, that is delayed and irregular secondary ossification centers, the flattened and squared of epiphysis, the thinning of the lateral tibial epiphysis, then double layered. These are the features but not seen in this present radiograph. Then there is double layered patella and hypoplastic tibial and femoral condyles with shallow intercondylar notch. These features are enlisted to complete the list, however, that they are not seen in the present radiograph. Now here we are seeing again there is flattening and fragmentation of the epiphysis. These are the different cases. Now let us come to the metaphyseal dysplasias. Now rare autosomal recessive disorders, they are causing splaying and flaring of the ends of the long bones. Now what are the clinical features? Their general health is unimpaired, they manifest in late childhood, muscles are weakened, and radiological features include normal density, and the failure of metaphyseal modeling resulting into splaying. Cortex is thinner, femur, tibia, proximal and distal, fibula, proximal, humerus, distal end of radius and ulna, sternal ends of the clavicle, ribs, rami of the ischium and pubis, vertebrae shown, increased density of the central bodies. Now these are the radiological features which are illustrated in next 3 X-rays as these. All the findings which are already enumerated are seen in these X-rays. Now let us come to the another entity, that is asphyxiating thoracic dysplasia. Now a small thorax, there is a small thorax with the short ribs, then they are horizontally oriented, then a horizontal acetabulum with medial and lateral spurs, that is causing them a trident. Now let us come to another one, that is hyperparathyroidism. This group is taken because the radiological appearances, they are to be differentiated from dysplasias, and by and large they have got a endocrinal base, so there are a lot of manifestation, and the investigation, once it is detected, are targeted towards the clinical entities and the clinical varieties. To hyperparathyroidism. Hyperparathyroidism is included in this group for a differentiation and differential diagnosis purposes. Now generalized term for overactivity of the parathyroid gland is as follows. There is primary hyperparathyroidism, secondary hyperparathyroidism, tertiary hyperparathyroidism, and the radiological features include subperiosteal desorption, decreased bone density, loss of cortical definition, then Brown's tumor, target site of involvement, and hence subperiosteal desorption, and the skull salt and pepper appearance, and the spine show rugger jersey spine. Now all these radiological features which are listed here are seen in the radiograph, which are subsequently 6 illustrations are there, they will be seen in it. Now this is pepper pot skull, is salt and pepper sign in pepper pot skull. Resorption. It affects radial aspect of the proximal and middle phalanx of the second and third fingers. Then loss of lamina dura. This causes an appearance that is called as floating teeth. Now rugger jersey spine. Prominent in plates densities at multiple contiguous vertebral level to produce an alternating sclerotic lucent and sclerotic appearances. So this is called as rubber jersey spine. Then long bone show osteopenia, overall diffuse in bone density. Then there is ortical. The findings which are noted here are the some periosteal desorption, osteopenia, then there is a fracture neck of the femur seen on both sides, that is a incidental finding. Then pseudo hypoparathyroidism. This is the adolescent females are more affected. They have got a short stature, they have got mental retardation, and there is a history of seizures. There are 5 X-ray illustrations which will follow. Often patients are short stature and obese. There is accelerated fusion of genu, broad bones with coned epiphysis. Then metacarpal sign is here. There is short 4th and 5th metacarpals are seen. Here we are showing short metatarsals. Then we are coming to a conclusion. Skeletal dysplasia is a very vast topic. Till now we have seen couple of them. There are many more which are not covered in these 2 lectures, lecture 1 or lecture 2. Subsequently, we'll have lot of film reading sessions, and film reading sessions will also include many cases from skeletal dysplasias. So this was the introductory lecture, and more details and more X-rays and more illustrations will be shown in subsequent film reading sessions. We are going to have it in very short time. The lecture will follow with the film reading session in coming few days. Now, this was a part of a skeletal dysplasia. We have seen basic approach to this disorder. In this part 2, we have seen individual disorders and how to diagnose them with the help of plain radiograph or by skeletal survey. I wish you will make help of this knowledge and in identifying different dysplasias for better management of the patients. And radiology has got gold standard because the dysplasias often we take one or the other projections of X-ray, and in that X-ray we find certain abnormalities, and subsequently we land up with a very good diagnosis confirming and giving a good idea about the workup of skeletal dysplasias. In that way, not only one X-ray which gives a clue, but the skeletal survey has got a big role to play, and it is very important to identify from a single film. So I'm sure with the help of this lecture, with the help of reading you are making, with the help of your departmental routine work, you are seeing many X-rays, you are reporting many X-rays, different varieties you are seeing. After seeing one X-ray, you are going for multiple more X-rays. So that will make a complete skeletal survey and give patient a good idea about what disorder they have got. Now with this, I thank you for giving me your valuable time. Please note, knowledge is not a race, it's a process. Be a part of this process and enjoy the feast of knowledge. I am Dr. Anil Joshi, blogs of till we meet again. Again I am reminding that skeletal dysplasia is a very vast topic. We have covered certain portion in it, but lot of cases will be shown in some other illustrations, especially the sessions which we are going to have as a film reading sessions. In that, more and more cases will be shown and more discussions will be repeated. I request you to make best use of your knowledge, apply your full concentration, and full-heartedly you try to help patients so that they will be benefited. Thank you.